How you guys doing?
Good.
You doing good?
It's a great morning.
Jake, Jeff has a confession. And you have a problem.
Where do you fall?
Yeah, right.
Well, I have a thought. I was destined for this podcast.
For this particular episode, or just
I mean every episode. I'm built for this moment. The Average Pastor podcast. I found out recently from some family, like a distant aunt who was doing some research on the Arendts, and they found out they came over in the 1600s on a boat. The way that there was a few hundred of them, and William Penn, as he was founding Pennsylvania and getting this area, they needed some farmers. So he said, we gathered about 300 farmers from Bavaria of mediocre intelligence and brought them over.
And and the line has stayed true.
Yeah.
You're a blue blood of mediocrity.
We have been on the cutting edge of mediocrity since we got here. Since we landed on the shores, man. I
thought you were going to say you were related to William Penn or something. You know what I mean?
No. Just some Bavarian farmers of mediocre intelligence. And so,
glorious.
I was built for this. Destined for this podcast. But Jeff, we're gonna have to kick him off, Jake.
What's your confession, Jeff?
I know, man. I'm a little embarrassed. I actually, as funny as this is, I didn't know how to break it to you guys.
This will be Jeff's last episode.
Because
he's no longer average.
I got a call that I've been asked if I would be the alumni of the year for Midwestern Seminary. And even as the call is going on, I'm literally like laughing to myself.
Turn in your membership.
You had to turn in your Average Pastor card and replace it with Jeff Dodge. I'm a big deal.
I'm a big deal.
We're going to start a new podcast called the Award-Winning Pastors Podcast. You're going to have to find some co-hosts. We're taking submissions to replace Jeff on the podcast.
As long as the confessions are going, I was Citizen of the Year in Osage, Iowa in 1981.
What? So you've been a fraud this whole time?
Imposter.
I've been hiding all these awards.
They infiltrated our ranks.
There's all the awards I've ever gotten. I just listed them there.
No,
I can't even tell you how much better I feel about myself. I
knew
just like a weight has been lifted.
What did you went up to Osage? This is like a couple years ago you had an award ceremony. What was that?
Yeah. It's a small town, man. Yeah. I think I was an alumni of the year there, too. Now that you bring it up, now that you're dredging up all my dark secrets.
When Mark wrote The Average Pastor, or The Advantage of Average,
yeah,
I was like, that makes sense. If you would have wrote that book, there would have been something like, and now it all makes sense.
Yeah. So it's been great. It's been a good run, you guys. Really enjoyed the friendship.
But serious though, congratulations.
I've been kicked off the island.
What does that mean? What does that mean that you're the alumni of the year?
I know very little about. So there's the big Southern Baptist Convention. The seminary is part of the Southern Baptist Convention, and as are our churches. So there's a convention in Dallas in June. And they've asked if I would come down and receive this award,
Do you get to say anything?
I don't know.
If you don't, you're still average. If they give you a microphone, then
no, here's what's going to save the day. Dr. Allen is like 6'5". If he does call me up to stand beside him, that will remind everyone in the crowd that I'm indeed below average.
A real hobbit has walked up onto the stage.
True hobbit. Yeah, it's always really embarrassing to stand next to him.
So Jeff has a confession. Jake has a problem. You doing a wedding in Phoenix?
Yeah.
Talking about
we got to know a refugee family when they lived in Cedar Rapids and just grew close to them, and they'd moved away, and one of their kids is getting married and invited me to do the wedding. So big honor. I'm excited to go do that, but realized that I don't fit into my suit.
And by the way, notice the singular suit. It's not suits.
I bought a suit about 15 years ago. Up until then, I wore the same, I just had black dress pants and the same sports coat I wore to prom in high school. It had gold buttons. It was every funeral and wedding. I finally, somebody said, like, I think you need to, like, you're in ministry. You're gonna need to invest into a suit.
Wouldn't be bad.
Yeah, so I got a suit like 15 years ago, and every funeral and wedding I've done in the past 15 years, it's always been like it's fitting differently than when it got tailored. And I didn't
remember this being made of spandex.
Yeah, the last one was just like, I've been in fear of, like, if there's a funeral or, kind of, I'm in trouble. I'm in a pickle. And, I just put it off.
This wedding just kind of snuck up on
me a little bit. Well, we went to Kohl's. Mars and I were trying some, like, let's problem solve here. Let's go.
Yeah.
And one of the people helping we stopped at the Men's Warehouse, and this guy trying to help me is like, oh, you've been blessed by the quad father. I don't know how to take that. Like, I don't know you that well. Like, you got a tape measure in my inseam, but we don't joke like that yet. So we tried a bunch of different stores, and this was, so, you know how, like, Kohl's, they have, like, a big and tall section, and I was kind of like, but I always feel like they never quite carry my size. There's just a few in my size, and then trying to get the colors to match. And so finally, yesterday, I went to the big and tall store. And I've shopped at a big and tall section, but I've never went to the big and tall store. And it was the first time in there. But the guy, this was a new experience.
Hi, I'm Jake Each. Hi, Jake.
Jake has a whole group. Can I do a therapy session in the back? I've never had this experience, and it's like, I'm going back to this place, because he said, well, what size? I just told him my size. He's like, I don't know if we'll have your size. But he meant on the low, and I'm like,
oh, that's beautiful.
Oh, I've never been in this moment before.
That is great.
So great.
But they did. They did. They did.
We could all breathe a sigh of relief.
So I just bought a pair of black pants, and they don't quite match the black jacket, but it works. It works.
Do they still do kid sizes in husky?
I need an adult husky.
It's like, he's not fat. He's
well, they do. They have changed sizes where it's not just like, XL or double XL. Now you can get like double XL B or double XL T. So it's just big. So, it's like they're trying to help you. Like, oh no, you're not a triple X yet. You're a 2XB. Yeah, it's supposed to make you feel better.
That turn of a letter.
Yeah,
it's a difference.
You're like a
don't
big
give that
2X.
man another X yet. Yeah. Just hold off on that other X as long as you can. It's like, no, I'm an XXBB. So here's my other problem. We're economical, so we didn't get the suitcase for the plane ride, so I just had my backpack. So I got to wear the suit. I'm not going to like put the suit in my backpack. So I got to wear this uncomfortable suit on the Allegiant Air where you're already uncomfortable in the seat. So. I'm going to walk on Allegiant in a suit and be like, where's first class? But they'll look at my mismatching outfit and they'll be like, no, you're in the right place.
Why don't people dress up to fly anymore?
Right? Quite an event.
You're just judging everybody else on the plane.
Totally.
On the Allegiant flight.
Totally. So that's my,
Do you at least did you at least upgrade to get a seat with some legroom? Or did
No, but
Do they have that?
they don't have those seats. My wife was going to come with me, and she's not now.
Because of the way you're going to look.
She's embarrassed to be seen with me. No, she's got a cool music thing to come up for her, but so I think I'll have the seat next to me, which will be nice.
Oh yeah, nice. Oh, Jake. That's
Oh.
You
Hey, but you're
definitely-
married. So you're married to a big deal, though. She's going to a big music thing.
Yeah, I've
So-
known that for a long time.
It might be Mark all by himself on the next podcast. We're both.
You're above average, and I'm above average by association. But we all are on association.
Jake, your story qualifies you for this podcast. That's great. You're here to stay, man.
One guy got disqualified. One guy got affirmed in his averageness. Appreciate that.
You're in the Hall of Fame now. You're the first inductee into the Hall of Fame.
Yeah.
We got to have average pastor of the year, like the alumni of the year. Who's the average pastor of the year? What do you have to do to qualify for that award?
They make these 4-way stretch pants, which is a game changer.
How does that even work?
4-way stretch.
Yeah, it's just stretchy
Everywhere.
because you're always worried. Like, you guys don't know this, but like, are these gonna rip? There's kind of nervousness. Well, this one, like, I'll sit on a place, but you start to feel like I'm gonna be in a suit coat and yoga pants because it's just like, but they fit.
Holy cow.
Wow.
As our subscriptions just go down by the month.
This is a
Wait, do we have
this is a very
subscriptions?
average conversation.
Oh, man, that is beautiful.
We've
That
got
is
researchers working on all the directions of stretch on every dimensional
Right,
plane.
it's a 4-way.
These pants need to
But
stretch.
that fifth way,
beautiful. Don't go there.
don't go
We've
there.
invented a fifth direction. Oh my gosh.
Wow.
Man. So what's new? What's the news? What's new with you guys? You guys got through Easter.
Yeah.
I never heard how your Easter service was.
Okay, so I got a question for you. You did a Saturday night Easter service,
Right.
which we liked because I got to attend. So it was fun. How did you like doing Easter on Saturday? Logistically, did it work well?
It was
you do it
great.
again?
We had the most, I guess, parity between services, like even distribution, more this year than we've ever had. And I think that Saturday night was a great release valve on the Sunday morning. So every service was full, but that last year it was like dangerously full. So we're like, we can't do that again.
Yeah.
So we added Saturday night. It was great. Yeah. So it was a great weekend. You guys were in the Paramount.
Yeah.
But how was that? You guys still fit in there? I mean, there's a theme of not fitting and stuff, but you guys have been outgrown. you guys,
Is the Paramount 4-way stretch?
They don't stretch. They don't stretch. No, literally they don't. They're tight on, because in a church, it's like, yeah, we'll add another chair. There's no, like, this is our capacity. I was telling James beforehand that there's kind of a love-hate relationship going to the Paramount because it's a beautiful venue.
Yeah.
It's so cool to be in there, and to be able to just do 3 services is nice. But when you're already trying to fight the feel of, this isn't a concert, we're a church, and then you go into a place that's set up for concerts, you kind of fight that. And the Paramount staff sees it as a paramount event, so they serve like usher and everything, and which we're thankful for. And a lot of them go to Veritas, so they get like, well, we're getting paid to go to work. But I think sometimes they handle it like an event and not church. So the strictness of you can't come in yet, you can't go there, you need to get out right away, kind of is not a vibe of great friendliness in a church thing that you would want, which might be acceptable in a concert. Like, okay.
Right.
But yeah,
it was good.
It's good.
Yeah.
All that
So
it was good.
Yeah. three services though, and there, and they were all full. I mean,
they're fullish.
Wow.
Fullish. Yeah,
wow.
That's the hard thing though, isn't it? Is that you want people to come just under the proclamation of the word, to be drawn into corporate worship, all those things that we value so much. How important is that just welcoming, hospitable atmosphere and culture? Like, which should take precedence? Getting people to experience what I just said, or the family feel of a hospitable place? You know what I mean? Because when you're growing and have to have because that's every week to some extent, right?
Sure.
It is you're doing multiple services and trying really hard to uplift the good things, but you sacrifice other things.
And in an outreach sense, I think there's some people that are more eager to come to a church in the Paramount. They're familiar with it and come in. But we had, I haven't heard any this year. I know last year there were situations where like, the dad dropped his family off. They got in, got a seat, saved him, but counting, the dad went to join him and they wouldn't let him join.
Yeah.
It's like, no, we're already full. And they're strict to us full. So
yeah,
that was disappointing.
Totally. Yeah. The Saturday night thing, it worked well for sure. It's a little odd, to the Easter Sunday morning, he is risen, on Saturday night. But once we just kicked off with worship and everything, it seemed incredibly natural. And so I don't think it was problematic. But if there ever was a time that you're like, this is Saturday night,
Did you guys do a Good Friday service?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. We did. That may be my favorite service of the year. I love our Good Friday service.
Yeah.
It's just more of your core church people come to a Good Friday service than you're not getting a lot of visitors for a Good Friday service. But just a night of worship. We were in the Paramount and could just hear everybody sing. It was pretty sweet.
Oh, it's awesome.
We got some news. We had last Sunday, we talked about 2 church plants coming up.
Yeah.
Ryan Hamby and his wife Ellie going to California. So we announced Santa Barbara. I mean, we've talked about it for a long time. So it wasn't
public.
a surprise to a lot. But yeah, that was a fun thing. Awesome. And then Austin Claver and his wife Ellie are going to Spain, San Sebastian, Spain. So they got that coming up. So we talked about that. It was in the context of Luke 9. It stirred up. I was pretty fired up Sunday. We call it Vision Sunday, and it's just that Sunday, the first weekend in May, always falls. It's a special time for our church community because it's like our last week or two with students before they take finals and head off, and so it's a great time for us to look back on the year and just see God's faithfulness and then look ahead. What's going on? What's vision for the future and where are we going? And so we talked about the church plan. So we were in Luke 9, and this is where Jesus sends out the 12. So it's not in chapter 10, he's going to send out the 70 and then, Great Commission, he sends all of us out. But this is just the disciples' first mission trip. And so he's talking to them. He's like, hey, you got to go, and I'm giving you authority to preach the kingdom and to heal, which that's what he's been doing. Luke has talked about how he's been healing, he's been announcing the kingdom, and then he tells them, you guys go do it. Don't take an extra suitcase, don't take extra food, just go and stay where whoever welcomes you, that whole thing. And then it goes from that. He sends them out, and then Herod's like, who is this guy? I want to see Jesus. I want to see him. And then they come back, and it's the story of the feeding of the 5,000. But what was cool, what connected for me was how Jesus is teaching them. Why would he tell them to go and not take any extra stuff? And then in the feeding of the 10,000 or the 5,000 is both Luke and John do this. Like Jesus looks at his disciples and they're like, okay, Jesus, tell them to leave, tell them to go. And he looks at him and he says, you feed them. And I think that, why would he say that to them? Mm. What is he trying to teach them? And in John, it says that he looked at Philip and said, so Philip, where are we going to get enough bread to feed all these people? And it says in John's account, he says, and Jesus said this to test him because he knew what he was going to do ahead of time. Mm. And I think that was so instructive to me on the beginning of the chapter. Hey, don't take any extra stuff. Boom. They go, they come back. The crowds come. It says Jesus welcomed the crowds. That was kind of cool to think about, like Easter.
Yeah.
You're hosting the crowds. And he says he healed all. And then they're exhausted. Disciples send them away. And then Jesus is like, you feed them. What are you talking about? You feed them. And what is he doing there? And so that was a great setup for me with California, with Spain. There's just incredible, just to put it frankly, it's expensive.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Where are we going to get the resources to send these people? Like if you're sending a team, a family, there's hundreds of thousands of dollars that you feel like we got to raise this, we got to do this, we got to, and so it just sent me on this whole thing. Like he's asking us, so where are you going to get enough money to send these people? And it has me thinking. So I was pretty fired up. Like Austin and Ellie Claver are close to their goal. But they still had a few $1,000s a month to go. And for
which is, by the way, no small thing, right? They were almost there. They were just short a few $1,000s.
This is after, months of meetings and, right. and all that. And the thing is, when people come to Iowa, give their lives to Jesus, we are their family.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? It's not like, oh, let me go home. I have a whole network of aunts and uncles and family that are, like, oh yeah, we'll help. It's like, no, this is it. Mm-hmm. And a lot of their friends are their age, which means they don't have a lot of money. It's like mid-20s. You haven't, not at the peak of your career, you're still trying to pay off school debt. Yeah. You're trying, and then you're going to friends asking them, hey, it's a huge sacrifice, and people have done so much. But I was standing up on stage and I was a little fired up. I'm like, so we put their QR code up on the screen and I was like, hey church, let's do it. Don't pray about it. Let's just get them there. They need $3,000 a month. Let's just do it. We've never done that before. Don't know if we ever will again, but it's like in the moment I was like,
you didn't lock the doors, did you?
No, but I did throw this little zinger in there. Like, I've seen the cars you drive. You got the money to do this.
Yeah. The good news is we have the money to do this. The bad news is it's all still in your bank account.
Yeah, right.
Exactly.
Did you see James Pusey drive up when you made that comment about cars?
The Honda Fit.
I feel convicted. My 2007 Honda Fit.
That thing rolls in. It's like, James, I've seen your car. I know. And it was funny because Letha, my wife, was like that, because I was like, man, sometimes you never know if you're like, sometimes when you're a little off the cuff, that wasn't in my notes. You wonder, is it the flesh or the spirit? I'm curious how you guys discern that. I have been processing that with people. Like, I asked my old guys, they're all in their 70s. Mm-hmm. And it's like, how'd that land with you guys? Were you guys offended that I said that? These guys are all,
They'd be honest with you.
They'd be honest. but they also have resources and
Right.
nice cars, And the first guy was like, "Oh, we loved it. You have to say that.
Huh.
Your job is afflict the comfortable and comfort the afflicted."
Wow.
Do you think?
And all of them to a man were like, "No, that's why we come to church here."
Wow.
Don't you think
You
it's
gotta-
a problem
God.
if pastors are filtering if what they said was appropriate or not appropriate based on if people were offended or not? Because isn't that our job to, through the Word of God and truth, to convict
Right.
and challenge and press in? So if it's, I forget the text, but even when in Jesus' teaching afterwards, his disciples came in like, "Hey, don't you know that you offended the Pharisees?" And
Right.
and he was like, "That was the point." Like, he wasn't like, "Oh, I did. I didn't mean to." So I think, and often I think, because you said that to some people who have resources, and they're like, "No, that's great." Oftentimes, not that we can't say inappropriate, offensive things that we should, we shouldn't have said that. But oftentimes, somebody being offended is a sign that you pressed onto an issue that needed to be pressed on. Like you're reacting really negatively about that because it's true and it bothered you.
Right.
So how do I discern if it was in the flesh or the spirit in the? Because there's been times like you preached and like, "Oh man, that wasn't in my notes." Well, if it was foolish, it was of the flesh. But if it was, wow, when you said this in your message, and it's like, "Oh, that wasn't in my notes," it's like that was the spirit.
Do you guys?
I thought you were going to say whatever Marcy says afterwards.
Wait, say that again, Dave. It's the spirit.
I can really understand Isaiah before the throne, where he said, "I'm a man of unclean lips." He sees the glory of God, holy, 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 and he says, "I'm a man of unclean lips." That's the first thing he says. And I live among a people of unclean lips. And I was reading, one commentator was talking about how those of us whose job is words and speaking, like Isaiah, he's a communicator, he's a prophet. He's probably felt that the sin of words, it is, we can all be like, "Oh, I get it." Because our job is to talk.
For sure.
And
I think it was Isaiah who, in calling people out and addressing sins of the culture, was talking to some women of the culture, like, "You cows of Bashan."
Yeah.
that was Amos, yeah.
Yeah.
Amos.
Where there's a sense of like, I don't think we should be mean for mean's sake, but is there times where there's such an engraved sin in our culture that language to cut through the normalcy of it is needed? Like, we're such a material culture. Is it, if the motive is like, I'm trying to help break the chains of greed,
Right.
Don't you think you should think about the car you drive and the house you live in? How am I using?
Do you think somebody would argue, "No, you shouldn't think about that. Just do whatever"?
What do you mean, Jake?
Like when you say, "Don't you think that we should think about the car you drive?" I would say, yes. Would anybody say,
Oh.
I don't need to think
Right.
about?
Right.
So I'm sorry, I interrupted, but yes.
Because there's two things are true. One, I don't think there's anything wrong with driving a very nice car, an expensive car, enjoying it. There's some people but it's if you do that to the exclusion of like investing in eternal things. Jesus is like, he warned us so explicitly about, don't store up treasures here on earth where moth and rust destroy, where thieves break in and steal. Like, I think Jesus would look at that, 2025 Escalade and be like, hey, careful with that. That thing's going to rust out.
We've talked about this before on the podcast. I think when we do, whether it's building projects or raising support for church planting or missions, there's always this extra request. like we need you to give above and beyond, which you see in Scripture. So I'm not saying there's not a place for that where needs arise, but I think it ignores the bigger problem of if people tithe, we wouldn't have this conversation. Right. And that's probably the okay, we're asking you to give extra because we're not giving good. I know one of our elders did kind of an estimate of, okay, if the medium income of our church was this, and tried to be pretty conservative, and people tithed, what would our annual budget be? And I think we have a budget of $4 million, which is wow, that's amazing. You want to thank people for their generosity, but in his math, he's like, I think our budget would be like $9 million. So there's a sense of, I don't think we would be saying, hey, could you give a little extra if people were.
We would be able to fund them just if people were faithful.
And how do you navigate one of the list of sins that Paul lists in 1 Corinthians, along with like homosexuality, and is greed?
Right.
How do you appropriately address greed at an extreme, at the same level of? So it's like for all the people that feel a sense of sexual righteousness against homosexuality, but aren't giving generously in their life. It's like, hey, you're in the same boat.
Yeah.
We handle that the same way as pastors. So.
That's Ephesians 5. Of this you can be sure. No immoral, impure, or greedy person, such a man as an idolater, has any inheritance in the kingdom of Christ and of God. Like the weight of greed is put right there with sexual immorality.
Yeah, but it's hard to address.
But you can ask people if they've been looking at porn, but to ask someone if they've been giving is
generous.
I
think the hardest thing too is that, when Jesus, for instance, calls the Pharisees, you brood of vipers,
sons of Satan.
Well, he had the purest of motives all the time. I think the reason that all of us who are God's spokesman, his ambassadors, have to keep some of our words in check is, for instance, if I'm angry because my neighbor or fellow church person has a nice house or a nice car, is it driven by the same motive that Jesus, or is there jealousy involved? Am I just mad at them because they have what really, if I had the resources, I'd have it too, and I'm envious and jealous? You know what I'm saying? Yeah. So that's where I feel like I want to always start by looking in the mirror and being like, look, I should never hesitate to say what Jesus would say. That's our job. We're his ambassadors.
But you're doing artwork.
But we have to look at our own souls and say, okay, but where is when I get mad about something, is it righteous indignation? I hope so, and we can certainly have that. But sometimes that anger feels like anger. I don't know if it's my anger or Jesus' anger, or what, you know what I mean? Like,
and it forces you to do hard work.
It does,
but it's not. It's not that you can't be a generous tither and still drive a nice car.
Yeah,
it's not a. I mean,
you're saying.
I don't want somebody to feel like it's necessarily an either or. You're telling me I have to drive a 2007 Honda. What do you get?
Honda Fit.
Honda Fit.
Highly recommend.
And I'm righteous because
you should not drive that car. I don't think you would. I really don't think you would fit in there.
It's not illustration.
It doesn't stretch.
Four-way stretch.
The car doesn't four-way stretch.
And here's the other thing too. It used to be red. It's more of a dark pink.
It's oxidized.
It's faded a little. It's custom.
Yeah, it's custom.
It's got paddle shifters. You guys would love it.
Well, we should make this dichotomy of it's like either poverty or generosity.
The thing is, like, it's not don't get rid of your nice car, it's be generous.
Yeah.
It's just add generosity to the equation. I've seen the cars you drive in here. We can get Austin to $3,000 a month. It's not sell your car. I mean, for some people, but like you were talking, we were hanging out the other day where you were like, Yeah, but people are not going to change their lifestyle.
We're talking about the economy and just people feeling it.
Yeah,
I think the first thing to go in adjustments is probably generosity. I'm going to pull my giving back before I cancel my third streaming service.
Right.
The economy's, food prices are up. We need to stop tithing so we can pay for eggs.
Well, no, he's saying not eggs to feed the hungry children. He's talking about streaming services. I think
lifestyle, not nutrition.
Not that envelope. The other envelope.
Keep the eggs. Well, it's funny because you and Teresa literally have an egg story of.
Yeah.
Did you guys tithe at that time?
Oh yeah, yeah. I don't even remember who it was in my early days of discipleship that just took me to the scriptures and like everything else I didn't know anything about, but pointed me toward that faithful giving, tithing principle. And we locked on, and I'm saying this to the glory of God. It's not because Mr. Perseverance here. That's part of following Christ. So we were imprinted on that early. So yeah, the story Mark's talking about is we were living in California. We had, kind of burned the ships in the harbor to go off to seminary. So working full time. We had decided once we had children that we wanted Teresa to be able to stay home with the baby. So kept her at home. So I was doing both those. And so at one point she had this morning where she was just saying, I just want to have something nice for the family. I just want to cook something. Yeah. She saw a rotted banana and she goes, I just want to make banana bread and just make it smell like we've got abundance, in here, and want to make banana bread. And then she had this realization, I don't have an egg. And when you're that much on the brink of, where every ounce of milk and every egg is. And she paused and she said, Lord, could you please just allow us to have one egg? And open the refrigerator door. And there was one egg sitting there on the thing, but those things have marked us over and over. In fact, when you're talking about over and above, we're going to what now we would call a mega church. We didn't call it that back then, but thousands of people coming to this church. And at one point there was like a financial crisis. They were down and they were just, all the elders got up front and just said, we're just asking you, church, to help us make it through this. And Teresa and I went home and prayed, and I don't remember the amount at all, but we gave extra and like crisis averted for our church family. And I knew at that point, my little extra that I gave was not going to right the ship, but I still felt the fact that I can still tell that story this many years later, felt like I'm part of the family that we all did what we could do to, you know what I mean?
Yeah. That's good.
Well, this is maybe a challenge for us as pastors to think about. At the beginning of your faith journey, somebody had a conversation with you about that. So you're like, oh, I think that's just part of the gig. It feels like when you read the Gospels, Jesus had front door conversations.
Right.
Like, hey, you better count the cost. Like, take up your cross. Almost like he was trying to talk people out of following him. Be very up. It feels like today it's like, I want to try to I don't want to put any stumbling block, anything that might be offensive to you to following Christ. So we have this big front door, and then they've been a Christian for 10, 15 years, and nobody's ever had a giving conversation with them. Do you think we need to do a better job of having front door conversations with in an evangelistic type of...
Because, Jake, you were at that banquet thing for your salt company, this year at salt company, and they had asked me to speak at that thing. One more reason I get kicked off the podcast. They asked me to speak at the banquet. No, anyway, but what I had done is I went back and found my earliest journals as a Christian. Like one that's right after I came to Christ, somebody handed me this spiritual diary, and on the bottom you rewrite out the memory verse that's your memory verse that week, and what passage did you read, and so much. I was almost startled, like I am like barely out of the spiritual womb, and I'm being handed this. You know what I mean? But I was being taught from the get-go. And I'm talking about giving up rock and roll. And
I think what you said, it was so funny. He's like, I'm still wet from the birth canal. About his new birth cry.
Okay, see, those are those careless words. Like, as it's coming out of my mouth, I'm like,
it was hilarious. It was hilarious.
I'm not sure that metaphor.
Did you see
a Nicodemus
the collective
moment,
grimace in the crowd as they have the mental
Except
image?
me.
Especially all the women out there, like, oh my word, who invited this dude?
It was a Nicodemus moment. I thought it was sweet.
Yeah, but just to that point though, Jake, my earliest days as a believer, I was being challenged on what to give up, what to begin, and it shaped me.
Yeah.
Right?
It set a trajectory for you.
Totally.
Yeah. And, I think about for us, the things we see on the stage, it's also to us. I was reflecting on I seen the cars you drive in, comment to Letha afterwards. And she's like, oh, that actually hit me because we were driving in, in the 2004 Honda Accord with three wheel covers. One of them's missing a wheel cover, and Jet just got a new car, and that's that's manna in the Aaron household comes in the form of 2004 Honda Accords, and they're driving in, and Letha, but her application of that was, we can do something.
Yeah,
like we have a car, we should give in accordance with the way God has blessed. I told Awesome, like, and I talked to our staff about this. Like, we don't, just like we're not going to do that again. Probably put a QR code and give to this specific I mean, we might, but it felt like it just seemed like that's what the Lord has put on my heart to do. And this might offend some people who don't get their QR codes out, but it's like, you always want to be, I think this is a leadership lesson that's so important, is, I don't know, an amazing pastor out there, probably I'm stealing this quote, but just the idea of always do for one person what you wish you could do for everyone. Mm-hmm. Like, you know what I mean? Because what happens is, well, if we can't do it for everyone, we're not going to do it for this one person. And I think that's where churches go to.
We just hit that in Luke 9 also a couple of weeks ago, right? Where, because I brought up, like, all of a sudden Luke records that Jesus stops everything to help one guy whose daughter is sick and another woman who's been sick, the 12-year-old girl, the 12-year-old bleeding thing. Well, everybody in the crowd had needs. That's why they were there. But he didn't heal. Now, in other places, sometimes it'll say, hey, he healed all the sick. In this moment, he picked two out of all the masses crowding in, so like a sardine
why
effect,
didn't you wait, I had a bleeding, why didn't you heal me?
How come you didn't do
healed
me?
her and not me? Yes, I think this is where, I mean, churches go to die once you go and you're just policy driven and you can't, we would, man, God's put it on our heart to do this thing, but we got this policy that somebody made.
Fairness.
Yeah. And so, but I told Austin, I told our staff, I'm like, guys, I'm telling you, we don't give to, people, missionaries raising support. And I mean, we get hundreds over the years, of requests for, for giving. And unless it's like our biological family, we really don't give to, I mean, we give to, our giving is we tithe to the local church. So 10% of all that we make is going to Veritas. And then we give, a little extra. I have just a little amount. I give to Salt Ames. I feel like that was my job for years, to raise support for Salt Company and Ames. And, remember calling people, alumni, and just thinking, man, if everyone did a little bit, we'd be able to do this ministry. So I'm like, I want to continue to give, and it's a widow's mite, but I felt like and a couple other things, but with Austin in particular, I just was like, I'm going to break, Leaf and I, we're going to break our own rule and just do something. It's not, it's, if I told you the amount, you'd laugh, and it's just widow's mite stuff, but what we can do, I think that's, and what God put on your heart to do. I think that's the there's faithful giving that's like, don't wait for God to put it on your heart to obey, to have the habit of tithing off your first fruits. That's just a biblical principle.
Totally.
The other stuff, do you run across things where it's like maybe policies or, different things could get in the way of doing what God puts on your heart to do? That idea of do for one what you wish you could do for everyone. Do you ever, run into those things I think up in Cedar Rapids?
It's where you don't want to act like a big church and you want to continue to act like a small church, where the easy thing to do is just make a policy.
Right.
When it's like, we'll just have a conversation. Because I don't think we need to make a policy for everybody. Oftentimes, policy making is an avoidance of a conversation. I don't want to have, because it's not a problem in our church. It's just one problem. So we try to say people over policy. And it's tricky because you can easily go like, wow, this family wants to borrow some tables for a graduation party. If everybody in our church wanted to borrow tables, it's like, but they don't. Everybody's not asking to borrow tables. This one person, so we can. Once everybody in our church asks to borrow tables on the same Saturday, let's cross that bridge then.
Yeah.
But right now it's just one request.
And does it matter the nature of that person? I mean, if this is one of your most faithful volunteers, they have sacrificed, they've
set
given,
those tables up over
they've
and
been
over.
doing this for decades.
Totally.
And you're going to say, no.
I think one of the things that rubs me wrong in trying to navigate, some of it makes sense, but you could let staff have access to church things that members don't. And in all honesty, you can look at your staff and say like, hey, you work here and I get that. And I love that you can come and take a table. But that member is more committed to this church than you are because they work 50 hours and then come to practice and lead a connection group and do all that. You get paid to be here. And I want to give them the access and privileges that you have. I think we have to recognize how devoted a lot of members are to the church that give generously, that sacrifice their time.
That gets into...
Let them use a table.
Yeah.
It gets into membership.
Yeah.
Why, if you were just answering this question, why does membership matter? It's not in the Bible. You talked about members and membership. This is I think this is maybe one of the greatest pastoral challenges in our world right now.
Yeah.
Is
Sure.
How do you, what is membership? Why do you do it?
When you say it's not in the Bible, you mean the word membership is not in the Bible. I think you can make a strong biblical case for membership. I think one's a discipline argument. Like we're clearly told to kick people out. Well, you can't kick them out unless they're in. So who's in? You got to have some way to, and then just a leadership structure. It's like, okay, who's the flock that you're responsible for?
Right.
So I think you can make a strong biblical case for membership. It's just not the word. And in our culture, you associate membership with like a country club and some elitism, but belonging, defining who's the group, coveting together is a strong New Testament theme.
This is one more thing we're learning from you guys is just the value of membership. I mean, we have, but I think we're strengthening and bringing more definition to what we mean. But one of the thoughts that we had is, we do these summer picnics all over town, the different parks, and it has been remarkable the number of people who have felt like Veritas is their home because we just had it with no agenda, just these. But anyway, we decided that at least one time this summer we're going to have a membership picnic so that members can get to know who the other members are. So this isn't the throw the big, welcome mat out. This is specifically we want you guys to come and just those kind of things where this is also it's great for for instance, my son that's going to be deployed, we had our whole family gather together to be around him and talk to him and how can we support you. And then one evening this last weekend, we had all of his colleagues from his firm that he works for and neighbors and, blah, 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 come. I'm just saying there's time for family.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, no, we've got some things we need to talk about and we have a different level of nearness to this guy.
Yeah.
And then there's also totally appropriate. Okay, now we're going to open the doors and we're going to. So anyway, I'm just saying, I feel
Jeff,
like we're
and
learning.
that's a great example of why membership matters. Because it's like, who is your family? If
Yeah,
you didn't
who's
know,
in.
like,
Right.
because as close as I am to you, and as many times as I've been hosted at your family table and at your, fire porch here we sit, I would have, if I just would have walked in that moment, I'd be like, oh, they're having a family thing.
Yeah.
I'm not a Dodge. Like, I'm not a part of the family as much as you,
Right.
love me. And we both would have felt like, this is not the moment. It's like your family. And that's how, with us, it's like, yeah, there's the crowds that we host people on Sunday mornings and the family table's open. But man, are we doing those moments of, hey, this is the church family?
Right.
Especially when you take seriously the call to elders that you're accountable for the souls of your people. And you want to know, like, okay, which ones?
Yeah.
I want to take that seriously. But I think the church is realizing a problem that we created, because I think in the name of evangelism, churches celebrated how fast you could get somebody that came to your church the first time into a connection group or into serving. And we kind of judge success on just how fast that happened.
Yep.
So basically you're saying we're celebrating getting an unbeliever plugged into the life of our church quick. And I understand there's value in community and somebody's progressive journey of understanding and coming to follow Jesus Christ. But there's a spirit of maybe negativity towards the idea of membership where we've bumped into, okay, there's places in our church where you can serve and you don't have to be a member to do that. Well, if the attitude is because I'm new here and I'm trying to learn and I'm kind of on the trajectory to being a part of this place. But when you bump into, I don't want to be a member, that's just not for me, but I love serving here. It's like, well, I don't think I want you at the door welcoming people to a place you don't want to commit to.
Wow.
That doesn't make sense. I mean, So I think at what level do you feel like, hey, our ministries are supported and run by people who have covenant to do this together?
You keep saying coveted, but I think covenanted or something like the covenant of is that like
you would know more than I do.
Jake, that you just solidified your place on this podcast
for the second time.
We coveted to do this.
Okay, so it seems like the qualifications for an average pastor are bad vocabulary and fat. So I'm killing it, I guess.
Jake, could you wear your suit next time we film?
You have to
wear that thing.
That'd really help to drive our YouTube numbers. They've been down lately, so let's get those viewers. Let's get those eyes on this.
What is four-way stretch?
Let me demonstrate for you.
It might be a mature rating on that.
Jake, can you show us what was the quad you've been blessed with?
By the quad father.
Yeah. I was gonna read a Bible verse, but I don't know.
You probably should. Please do.
We were talking. Okay, my one church membership and one Bible verse, Hebrews 13:17. Obey your leaders and submit to them, since they keep watch over your souls as those who will give an account, so that they can do this with joy and not with grief, for that would be unprofitable for you. That because two things happening there is, one, that's saying obey your leaders, so there's clearly a defined elder there's clearly defined leaders, and it says to submit to, and then it says submit to them since they keep watch over your souls as those who will give an account. So how do we as elders know who we're watching over?
Sure.
Is every person that comes through that door like, well, you serve in Veritas Kids, or you're on the welcome team, or you serve? Are we going to stand before God and be accountable for their souls? So membership is just practical. Like who are we accountable to, and who are you being held accountable by? And then,
what levels of your church are only reserved for members? Like, James, do you have to be a member to be on the worship team?
No.
So
you have to be in a connection group.
But you would have people on your stage leading the congregation in worship who have not committed to be a part of your church.
Yeah, James.
Or let me. Would you make a distinction between the band and the singers up front?
We do. It's it's a little bit like what you're talking about with the policies.
Yeah.
We do kind of take it on a person by person level. Like, are you known? Do we have confidence that you are qualified to lead?
But I think you're bringing up a good point, though, Jake. As we're rethinking, it's not just that. That's just one area where obviously non-staff members are.
Do you have any non-members lead connection groups?
No.
Okay. So there's an area where it's like, okay, this is reserved for,
and we're just making it. I don't know if we've mentioned it on here or not, but a new thing is serving communion. So we now serve communion as opposed to having stations or whatever.
Yeah.
And we're doing that where you need to be a member to serve.
And I think
communion.
a strength of your guys' church is how highly relational you are. And when somebody's in process, I love the spirit of like, yeah, come, be a part of us, join us. What we've bumped into is you've been here for 8 years, and when we challenge you to become a member, you say no.
Yeah.
So at that point, we're like, well, then stop teaching second grade then, or whatever. So we're bumping more into like, I just don't want to.
Because if some of those reasons are, I don't want to get baptized, or I don't want to give generously, or some of those just anchored deep.
I don't want to be held accountable.
When you went to Hebrews 13, there's a couple chunks in Hebrews 13, because the other one that I thought maybe you were going to is in verse 7, where it says, remember your leaders who have spoken God's word to you. As you carefully observe the outcome of their lives, imitate their faith. And so that's the flip side of that is elders need to know who the members are so that we can give an account, and carefully shepherd them. They need to know who the elders are so that they can. It's like what I was talking about when I was an early believer. Somebody several steps ahead of me was telling me what steps to take. What, you know what I mean? Like, I had to imitate the faith of people. That's how I got. And now we've got to be known also.
I think it's the spirit of like American autonomy of when you say like, well, who, I go to this church a little bit, I go to this church a little bit, and you're like, well, who are your elders? Who are your leaders? Who are you submitting to? And it's selective. It's not, I'm not putting myself under anybody.
Yeah.
Or even if I just attend this church, I don't attend it on a capacity where I've invited the voice of leadership into my life.
Right.
It's on my terms.
Yeah.
So I think taking membership seriously is attacking a sin of my faith on my terms.
Right.
Spirit.
Right.
So the other, I don't know if I'll call it extreme, maybe just the other model that I question, or I'm like, I don't know if I feel good about that. So if we swing the other way and like, let's go hardcore on membership, I feel like it can become like a let's go hardcore on tithing, and then it becomes a legalism thing.
Right.
We're investigating, and it's a culture of, or we're going to go hardcore on modesty, and then it becomes or we're going to go hardcore on membership. So here's an example. I was listening to a pastor that was talking about how baptism is a congregational it's basically it's a local church ordinance, and it's like the congregation is affirming the baptism. Like it's connected to church membership. Like you're being baptized, and that's connected to your church membership process. Mm-hmm. Does that make sense? Uh-huh. And so it becomes part of it's almost like the congregation is baptizing them in the name of the Father, Son, and Holy Spirit. It can get in certain.
So for us, baptism is often associated with membership, because if somebody came to us and said, and I'm talking about an adult here, mm-hmm. I want to be baptized, and that's great, and we say, well, part of be following Christ, this is, I think I'd put that in the category of like front door conversations, mm-hmm. is that's awesome. Part of following Christ is being a part of Christ's body. Mm-hmm. And we want to invite you to be a part of our church and covenant together.
Good job.
You got every syllable.
Right. And if they were like, no, I just want to be baptized, we would say, like, I think you need to wait. Mm. If you're saying, I do not want to become a member of Christ's church, but I do want to be baptized and be a follower of Christ, we're saying, like, I don't think those line up.
Huh. Interesting.
So we would probably take issue with that.
So let me throw the wrench at that, though, because when I became a believer, because the church that I was going to did connect baptism with membership, I don't know if I would have been a kind of a weaker brother or whatever in this, but because I'd come out of an unbelieving denomination, a mm-hmm. church, a member of that church, and confirmed in that church, I had a hang up with church membership because I was like, man, I was a member of one of those, and that thing wasn't. I really wanted to be baptized, but the membership part is what kept me. Now we're talking about a matter of weeks. You know, right, I mean, this is all going in pretty fast, but it really did. I still go back and I remember that had I been able to be baptized because I was a follower of Christ, invite unbelieving friends, family, but the fact that they attached membership to it, and I still go back to, I don't want to take something that, we can back up membership biblically. There's good foundation, but it's more based on principle. Baptism is part of the Great Commission. You know what I mean? It's like core principle. I get a little afraid of connecting those two things too solidly. Does that make sense?
Yeah. I mean, I think I struggle with when you look at the book of Acts, what's prescriptive and what's descriptive. Right. In the church is blowing up and it's expanding. So you get like the Ethiopian eunuch, there's water, let's get baptized. Is that this prescription of like, as soon as somebody professes faith,
right,
just do it right then, right there. But then when you look at the church in the first century, you would do like a 2-3 year apprenticeship before they would baptize you. Mm-hmm. Like, hey, are you going to follow Christ? Are you, because you're coming into the community of faith, and there would be some testing periods. Yep. So I think if you take the approach of like, you profess that you want to follow Christ, some of our job as elders is to say, like, do you have a credible profession of faith? Do you understand the gospel?
Right.
Do you want to follow Christ with your life? We patiently walk with them. And if it's, especially in a Christian culture where getting up front and getting dunked, where everybody cheers for you, is this exciting thing. I think a lot of people are like, I want that. I want to be on the video, and I want people to cheer for me, and I want to have my moment. But they're saying, but I don't want to join your church, and I don't want to do X, Y, and Z.
Sure.
You might be like, well, let's slow it.
Totally.
I think it's a shepherding thing more than we're connecting this to.
We have a different problem where people don't want to get baptized because they don't want to be on the video, and
they don't want to be on the stage,
and you don't want to be on the stage, and getting in front of everyone, and I'm like, I get that. Yeah. I think there's.
I know.
I don't want that to be a barrier either. Like, I just would have a hard time. I mean, some people, maybe even just for physical reasons, like I have a hard time getting into, it's just I think that to be too when you talk about the early church and what they did, I don't know, Acts, like they baptized a few thousand people, and I don't see any way they would have done that.
That's the struggle, like what's prescriptive and what's descriptive.
Right.
And
Yeah.
this is like that Pentecost moment. Where
Yeah.
and what's trying to shepherd the souls of people you're accountable for. Because if you're getting baptized at our church, there's a connection. Even when Jesus got baptized by John, he was associated himself with John and John's ministry. When we baptize somebody as a church, I think we feel responsible to say, like, hey, we've heard their testimony, and we're saying that they're a follower of Christ. Like we're putting our approval to that.
Yeah. I think the thing is, what we don't want to do is say, well, this is complicated, therefore let's just skip all this. You know what I mean? Because instead what we should say is, we really value membership. We can see where the Bible teaches. And we really value believers' baptism. And so, maybe Veritas Cedar Rapids and Veritas Iowa City are going to do it a little differently, or the connection are going to be a little, but don't say, because it's hard or because it's complicated, therefore let's just
not
stay away from it, or let's not talk about it.
Yeah.
Sometimes doing something even at 85% right, and if we get to heaven and be like, oh shoot,
Sure.
Jake had it tighter, then let's still aim the right direction. You know what I mean?
Sure.
And, yeah.
Okay, we're going to begin our descent.
It's gonna be a rapid one.
Well, it doesn't have to be a rapid one. It could be a. Dude, this.
When have we ever had it? We should aim for one at some point.
I saw this
Way off in the horizon.
I was. What's a better? We talk about when you're scrolling on social media, it's like it's doom scrolling. But what is it when it's like happy, joyful scrolling? When like everything you see, like this, my Instagram is. I love it. Like it's great. It doesn't make me mad. There's no news stories on there. Nothing to make me mad. It's all just
happy
nature. Crazy stuff going on in nature. Weird facts from history.
Mark, that's called an upper. The drug world would call that an upper. You love it.
You're getting little hits every time you.
No, I love that. It's not doom scrolling. It's because I need it.
That would be a downer. You're doing an upper.
Can we share your algorithm in the show notes so everybody can?
There we go.
I don't think everybody has that experience.
It must be
with
good.
Instagram.
I enjoy it.
It's great. I wish, because I want to find this, talking about our descent, this Russian pilot in 1986, this Russian pilot made a bet with his co-pilot that he could land the plane blindfolded.
No.
Yes.
And the passengers had no idea that this was going on.
Did he do it?
He crashed the plane.
What?
Yes.
This is your upper? This is your happy thought?
This is the descent.
What is happening right now?
It started off kind of funny because it was like you're talking about, I was connecting it to how we're going to end.
Dude, I'll tell you why your algorithm is always high. It's because that's how you read everything, is somehow that's a happy story. Well, everybody's Instagram would be happy if they were Mark Aaron, because it doesn't matter what the story is. This is awesome, you guys.
This is hilarious.
This dude
Jeff,
blindfolded
I connected
himself
it to-
Well, Jeff, do
Come on.
you think Mark could end this podcast blindfolded?
What the? James, did you find this? Could you find this story?
Yeah. I mean, this is a long time ago. I mean, according to
1986,
Wikipedia.
yeah.
Wow. Okay. Well, this says 1994.
Oh,
Yeah, but
94.
killing 63 passengers.
I'm guessing something like that's happened multiple times in Russia.
I didn't
let's put that algorithm in there.
I just read the first couple lines and I kept scrolling.
Oh no! You're right. This is 1986. I was looking at a different one, but yeah, this.
A different one.
Wait, what the heck?
Yeah, he made a bet with his co-pilot that he could do it blindfolded.
Well, if it's 86, and 94. You just got to wonder, is he like double or nothing?
Hey, remember that thing that happened? It's been a while. Let's try.
Well, the comedic moment was us landing this podcast blindfolded.
I see the connection.
Come on,
Yeah.
that's kind of funny because
There it is.
yeah, we try to land the plane every time. It's a little clunky every time.
So you want to just sign out?
And we're dead.
And
Here we go. Here's our sign off.
okay, here no, I wanted to.
Thanks for watching.
This is the one thing I forgot. I wanted to read this. This was something from because I found my church notes were still in my Bible from the Luke 9 thing. But this, when we were talking about church planning, I wanted to read this and just kind of this was a quote that kind of was a piece in the puzzle of me wanting to move to Iowa City and plant the church. It was the summer of 2009. There was Cornerstone had yet to really, we maybe partnered in some church plants, but hadn't really sent anyone out to plant a church yet. And there was maybe talk of a church plant in Iowa City. And I was just, I was like a little kid thinking about going on a roller coaster ride. It's like, no, I'm not going. I was the only staff person that came to Troy and you, I think, and just said, I'm not it. Don't pick me to go. I'm happy. And I was back home in Omaha. I took our 5 kids back home. Actually, I think Letha was at home with Jet. He was still a baby. So I think I had the 4 kids. I took him to Omaha to get away. I'm laying on the couch. I'm sleeping on the couch because I don't have a bed. I'll make, kids, and probably my sister from California and their family's there. But anyway, I'm laying on the couch and I wake up, boom. It was like 7:45. And I just felt like the Lord says, you need to go visit your 2 friends. Ethan had planted a church in Omaha, and Bob Thune Jr. had just planted a church in Omaha. And I just felt strongly like I need to go. I told my mom, like, Mom, can you take the kids? I just felt like so I went to Ethan's church. They had like an 8:15 service or 8:30 or something. I hit that real fast. And then I hit Coram Deo, Bob's church, for the second service. And in one of those churches, both of them were on church planning that morning. And this was the quote that went on the screen that I was like, oh my, this is something. This is Tim Keller. He says, the vigorous, continual planting of new churches is the single most crucial strategy for 1, the numerical growth of the body of Christ in any city, and 2, the continual corporate renewal and revival of existing churches in any city. Nothing else, not crusades, outreach programs, parachurch ministries, growing megachurches, congregational consulting, or renewal process will have the consistent impact of dynamic, extensive church planting. This is an eyebrow-raising statement, but to those who have done any study at all, it is not even controversial. And I remember that just landed with me, like it just, God began to shake me out of my, resistance to move. And there were 100 other things that God used, but that was one of the things. Yeah. And just coming back to that, I was, as we were talking about church planning and that's something we should continue to talk in the future. I have a lot of questions for you guys about church planning, about back to the resourcing and the money part, and how do you do that? How do you? What does that look like? So, and but maybe that's my attempt to land the plane blindfolded. That was something I had forgot to read, but maybe that can be an encouragement to people who are listening to be praying about, what God would do. And I think we are called. I think we're all on mission, So are we going to go? Are we going to send? But we gotta, to be on the front lines of this mission God has given us. So, that's me landing the plane. You guys have any last words?
Done.
No, done.
Let me just say, the way we started was we were gonna have to kick Jeff off because he's becoming a big deal.
And I've been affirmed twice in my averageness.
Yeah, and you are solidified. You know, you're not going anywhere. So just stay average, resist,
Or work your way back towards it.
yeah, yeah.
It starts with confession. It starts with confession. I hit that mark.
So anyway, well, hope you guys enjoyed the conversation. We're glad that you joined us. If you're still listening, it's so. I love the conversations I have after, people are like, hey, I listened and this connected, or hey, can you guys talk about this next time? Dude, we should actually have a place where people can give suggestions for topics, things to talk about. James, is there an actual place people could? For now, the place to do it would be just to leave a comment on the podcast. We don't have, website, email. That's a summer project. That's on its way. Okay, but, cool. So people can leave a comment like at Spotify? You can just make Spotify a comment? Or on Apple. Yeah, you can just leave a comment on it.
I didn't even know you could do that.
Yeah, our most recent comment comes from our very own Luke Stewart. He says, hey, yo. That's it. One word. Hey, yo. And I could hear him saying it. So Luke is out there. If you have stuff you want to talk about, and then this summer, maybe we'll get our stuff together and actually.
And maybe not. Either way, we'll keep doing this.
All right. Well, we hope you guys have a great week, and thanks for joining us. We'll see you next time.